Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host.
Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host.
What? Are you? You're mimicking me, aren't you?
Yep.
Ha! Got you.
Got you.
This week on the show, we're telling more stupid intro jokes, and we are once again taking a look at the films of Guillermo del Toro for our ongoing Deconstructing Directors series. This is the series where Matt and I will dive deep into the films of a particular director and kind of figure out how he works, how he ticks, and what makes them such a great filmmaker. We are on film number 2 in the Del Toro series, and we're going to be taking a look at his first foray into Hollywood with 1997's Mimic. This is going to be an interesting conversation, Matt. I think I'm almost actually looking more forward to having this talk than I was last week's Kronos, because I think this is a worse movie, and I think that's the way in which it becomes interesting. If you get my drift.
Well, I think for my part, this is probably the first time on any Deconstructing Directors episode where I've been like, this was not a good movie. And we can talk about Benjamin Button. I disliked, but I don't know if it was a bad movie.
Okay, fair.
Whereas I think this was just a bad movie. But I mean, you can still talk about Del Toro and his how he operates as a director, and what he did to maybe mitigate against this movie being as bad as it could have been, because I think like this movie, one thing I will say, this movie has some really cool stuff in it, some really cool moments, some really cool visuals. It's just the screenplay is bad, the story is bad, and at least one of the actors is terrible.
So yeah, that's it. We're going to be talking about Mimic. It'll be a full spoilers discussion, so please go see Mimic, or maybe don't. I think you should go see it, but go see Mimic and then come on back, and we're going to talk about it for an hour or so.
Since it has proven to be virtually immune to chemical control, we had to find a new avenue of attack. We recombined DNA to create a biological counteragent. We call it the Judas breed.
3 years ago, a team of brilliant scientists found a way to stop a deadly disease. Now, the cure they created has taken on a life of its own.
So you think your little Frankenstein's got the better of you, huh?
There's some weird shit here. Lots of it.
So Matt, you've kind of hinted what your feelings on Mimic are, but what is Mimic about?
3 years ago, entomologist Dr. Susan Tyler genetically created an insect to kill cockroaches carrying a virulent disease. Now, the insects are out to destroy their only predator, mankind. Okay,
but isn't mankind their prey?
Nothing about the science bullshit makes sense, which is often fine in a horror movie like this, where it's like, Jurassic Park, you get dino DNA from amber. Okay, in reality, there's no intact DNA in amber. We don't really care. It's a plausible enough story. It's got the core is coherent enough that you can be like, okay, and then you put frog DNA in it, and they can change sex, whatever. But this, like, nothing makes sense at all. Like, no one who ever took high school science apparently had any hand in making this movie, because nothing makes any sense. Like, for example, the bugs evolved. That sentence, yeah, they evolved to mimic their only natural predator, but apparently people haven't seen them. Like, no one has seen them.
No,
so how did they get the evolutionary pressure needed to actually evolve?
Because they're hungry. That's what I think. I think they say they're only predator humans, but I think they mean they're only prey humans, and because that's what they eat. They eat the people.
Well, that would make more sense, but not enough, because then they do the whole thing where they're like, they've evolved rapidly. They've evolved 10,000 generations. And you're like, no, they haven't, because they're giant animals and there's one male, and it's impossible for them to have that many generations. I'm sorry, it's stupid.
What if this
I'm gonna
is the
stop.
What if this is the newest version of the male? See, I have an answer for all of your complaints here.
Even if
This
it's the
isn't the
newest version of the
original
male, there would have to be like 6 males a day born for there to be 10,000 generations in the last few years.
Yeah, well, once they got to the latest generation, it slowed down. Obviously.
So you think they evolved 10,000 generations really, really quickly, but then they stopped now.
Yeah, they hit like a threshold line,
They're
and
done.
then their bodies were just too big, and they're like, "Oh, we got to take a break."
Okay, that doesn't make any sense either, but I'm just going to move on from talking about it because
we just kind of jumped into your angry science complaint.
This is the level on which I intend to discuss this movie. So
Great. So yeah, Mimic was written by Guillermo del Toro and also co-written by another author named Matthew Robbins. It was based off a short story of the same name by Donald A. Wollheim. I read the short story today. It is basically nothing like this. They're bugs and they evolved to look like people, and they're killing us. That's basically the short story. So it's not like Del Toro was hampered by the source material in this one, but this is an interesting movie. So I kind of agree with you, Matt. I don't think this is very good. I enjoy it for a lot of different reasons that I think we're going to get into. I think this is a pretty humdrum monster movie that a director with the skill of Guillermo del Toro kind of elevates. I will also say that I think both of us watched the director's cut version of this movie, which I believe was released in 2009. I think that was the only version available on Amazon Prime, it's probably where you watched it. That's where I watched it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the stylistic complaints that we might have had, I think were supposedly fixed in this 2009 version. Del Toro went back and fixed a lot of stuff he didn't like about the final cut because he didn't get the final cut of this movie. But you can't fix, like, let me just say something. And if anyone whose name ends in Snyder is listening, just because you do get your director's cut, it doesn't make the movie suddenly good. When it's a bit of a mess of a movie, just for example.
Yes. So
yeah, I mean, I think the thing that frustrates me about this movie is that it's such a good idea.
Yeah.
So the basic concept of this movie is, yes, this scientist played by Mira Sorvino, coming right off an Academy Award. She won the 1995 Academy Award, and then I think filmed this the next year. Which is some really interesting choices there. Maybe she just really loved Guillermo del Toro and really loved Kronos and was like, yes, I'll do anything you want. But there's some disease that is killing children in New York City, and the disease is passed by cockroaches. So in order to combat this, the scientist genetically engineers something she calls the Judas breed. We'll be talking about religious imagery in this movie because there's a lot of it again. And she uses that Judas breed to wipe out the cockroach population forever, I guess. So all cockroaches in New York City are now gone forever, which, wow, that's huge.
I mean, that's impossible. So I mean, I think maybe you could say that they killed the cockroaches that were carrying the virus.
Sure.
I don't know. See, they don't explain. That's exactly the kind of thing that they don't explain.
Yeah.
You know, the idea is, so you and I had the same exact thoughts when we chatted about this briefly earlier, that so many scenes in this movie just remind me of like a really inferior ripoff of much better moments from either Aliens or Jurassic Park. Like there's several moments where you're just like, this is just Aliens. There's just beat for beat Aliens.
The entire third act of this movie is basically the third act of Aliens. More or less. Yeah.
And the whole conceit is very much riffing on Jurassic Park because, you know, you have this moment where, blanking on the actor's name, F. Murray Abraham gives a speech, which is just a much, much worse version of Jeff Goldblum's, laconic life finds a way. Where the theme is just like, you were a fool to meddle in nature, and now nature is taking its revenge. And it's exactly the same theme as Jurassic Park. And you're just like, okay, this is nothing new.
The funny part is, like, in Jurassic Park, like Goldblum gives this life finds a way speech, and it's meaningless. And then later in the movie, Alan Grant finds the eggs and then connects the dots and like finds a scientific way, which might just be a yada yada kind of thing, but at least they gave the yada yada. In this movie, it's just like, well, they were supposed to die after 180 days. How did they not? And the movie just goes, nah.
Yeah, right.
And it doesn't really care. And I mean, we'll get into like kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff and why maybe this movie seems as clunky as it is a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, like this is a movie of the 90s. It's such a 90s thing. Like I don't know if you remember like Jurassic Park and a lot of the other movies coming out, like this idea of genetic engineering was this like brand new, like hot in the press type of idea. And we got a lot of movies around this time kind of taking this idea and saying, okay, but like, what if that's bad? What if we're meddling in creation and we're meddling in the power of God, and what could the consequences of that kind of thing be? And that's very much what this movie is doing. The thing I like about it, though, is it's doing it in a very Guillermo del Toro way, which is that like it's not, we don't just have characters saying you're meddling in godlike powers. He brings the Christian imagery into it. There's this movie is dripping with Christian imagery. I mean, the nest that the Judas bug lives under, a church. It's they live in a church. The main character has a rosary wrapped around her hand at the very end of the movie and creates a stigmata on her hand by slicing her palm open with a crucifix. Like this movie is not being very subtle with its religious imagery. I think that's one of the funniest things I saw on IMDb was like a trivia thing that was like, yeah, there's a lot of religious imagery in this movie. It doesn't add up to anything though. And I was like, no, it's the whole movie. The whole movie is the power of creation and this godlike power and what happens. And I mean, I think you could say one of the main themes of this movie is that God is pissed off at what we've done and is punishing us.
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, or to expand on that rather, the church that the bugs first infiltrate and the priest who they kill, the first person they kill is this priest. It's actually not, it's like a fake church. It's like an evil church being used to like do human trafficking for human trafficking of
human
like
trafficking
slaves.
in a sweatshop. Yeah.
It's not a church. And so this is the sort of thing that would make God angry, right?
Yeah.
And the bugs are almost there as a divine tool of justice in a certain sense, because as far as we know, the only people they kill there are the bad people. Although that's, I don't know about that. They kill innocent people too, for sure.
So they definitely do. Yeah.
So it's more, I mean, for me, like it connected very much with the idea of Jurassic Park themes and just like,
yeah.
Like, don't, if you meddle with nature, you can't possibly understand what you're doing, and it'll always bite you in the ass. But yeah, I mean, she uses the crucifix to kill it. So
well, and then there's the other thing is that Mira Sorvino's character, Dr. Susan Tyler, she has married Peter Mann, played by Jeremy Northam, who is the terrible actor that you were referring to in your little spiel at the beginning there. He is a CDC agent. She is the entomologist that saved everything. As part of this process, they fell in love and got married. And at the very end of our little intro sequence, they talk about having a baby. And then we move to 3 years later, no baby. So her big thing is that she is not seemingly able to create life, but she did create life. She created the Judas beetle, right? And that's this really interesting thing this movie is doing, is this kind of push and pull between her struggles to get pregnant and her dealing with the consequences of the life that she created the years prior. And like, I was like joking around when I sent you this, Matt, but like there's a scene very early in the movie when Mira Sorvino is releasing the Judas beetle into the wild. And in order to do that, they open, like, there's this plastic sheeting over the tunnel into the subway, and they open it for her, and it's a birth canal. Like it's just the way Del Toro has shot this and the way he's framed it and everything. It's just a birth canal. So she's entering into the birth canal and releasing her children into the wild. And she's created this thing, and now she has some responsibility for it. And I love the way that parallels with her struggle to get pregnant. And actually, what we learn halfway through the movie is she is pregnant. She doesn't know that, and she doesn't get to know it until the very end of the movie, because she left before the test was done doing its thing, I guess.
Sure.
And so her husband finds out about it, but withholds that information from her for funsies because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's some I think some really interesting theming going on here around this concept of creation, of creating life, and the power to create life. And one of the very early conversations she and Peter have are him giving her this like nun piss or so. I don't know what it is. It's some.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's supposed to be like it's showing how desperate they are to conceive that he's willing to give her this like probably folk remedy, basically, which is basically I think it's literally nun piss that's got probably a high concentration of some hormone that would perhaps help with fertility. And he's kind of a dick about it too, which God, he sucks as a character. I hate him.
Yeah. I want to spend a lot of time on that, but I do think it's interesting that her response to that is like, no. Like, I want this to be natural, that this should be natural. Like, that's what I want to do. And that, of course, is in direct contradiction of the very unnatural creation that she did with these bugs. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. I guess my problem with it is I don't think the script is strong enough to really connect these dots in a satisfying way. It doesn't culminate in a way that you feel the theming of parenting, of childcare, of this responsibility of, and like, again, I was joking when I said this earlier, but I said something effective like she wasn't able to have a baby of her own until she made up for the mistake of releasing these other babies into the wild, her other creations. And I guess if you squint, you could say that the movie is saying that, but I just don't think it pulls it off. And that's the disappointing part about it. Like, I think there's a lot of really interesting, cool things here about religion, about creation, about God. I think the movie is hamstrung into a very formulaic monster movie thing where we get all the characters together, we trap them in a space, and then we pick them off one by one, and then they win in the end, and yay. And we're like, so it's like Del Toro is pushing hard against this structure. And you can kind of tell that he's not in his comfort zone here.
Yeah. I think he was handed a screenplay and he's doing his best with it. But I think that, the notion of having these themes in a movie is interesting, but the movie does not execute them. Like, you were saying we've got themes of creation, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's literally what you just said is literally everything that they do with the theme there. There's nothing more to it. It's not in a surprising twist way. Like I was expecting for a big chunk of the movie that we were going to find out either that like the bugs were literally like had her human DNA because she had either intentionally or unintentionally contaminated it, because she, then she would have offspring, or
take the creation, the idea, and make it literal in a fun way.
And then that would also just conveniently serve as an explanation for the sci-fi BS that it's like, well, no, they look like humans because they have some human DNA, and then you would like, I would have accepted that as like, oh, that's a fun twist, but no, it's just I feel like the screenwriter just wrote like on a legal pad like procreation ? Creation, religious themes, and then sort of tried to make these things work and didn't really come up with anything particularly inspired or functional. And what, if we're going to give Del Toro, credit for kind of, I think saving the movie for making it be as good as it is, I think that is because he at least emphasizes those things when they occur. Focuses on the religious aspects, focuses on like and by focuses on, I mean like literally controls like the shot so that there's a cross in the background of the scene or whatever. But there's not much you can do when the screenplay just sucks. So
I mean he wrote the screenplay as well. Like, we can't, I want to take him away from this, but he was a co-writer on this movie, so we have to. The screenplay is bad, and it's Guillermo del Toro bad as well. So we can't make him immune from that critique.
Yeah, I mean, and it's possible that he is not a very good writer. I don't know. I haven't.
See, I don't know if that's true, but
well, I don't either. But the thing is, like, we haven't gone through enough of his movies yet for me to, because normally, we like to cover writer directors, and writer directors. Then you can kind of hold them responsible for a lot of stuff, not everything, but most of the stuff you're seeing on the screen kind of was their choice one way or another.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's not a writer director, then you have to be able to screen those two things off. And I don't remember. I know that we probably said this last episode, but is he mostly a writer director?
Yeah. There's only one film on this list that he did not also write the screenplay for. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's confusing because I remember thinking that the stories of his other movies were fine. I don't know why this one is.
Well, I mean, this is like, I don't like to do research on these movies beforehand because I don't want to be colored going into it. But I finished watching this movie and I just really didn't like it very much, and so I was left kind of scratching my head. And so I did a lot of research on this movie, and I mean, one thing I knew going into it is that this is a Miramax film. This is a Weinstein film. And this is a movie, I think, when all the news on Harvey Weinstein was breaking a few years ago, someone put a list out of like, oh, now that we've all like correctly realized that Harvey Weinstein is a terrible person, here's a list of 6 movies that he absolutely ruined. Mimic was on that list. So this is a movie that the production was very fraught, that Harvey Weinstein did not like what Guillermo del Toro was doing, did not like Guillermo del Toro, wanted to fire him. Mira Sorvino stepped in and basically said, no, like, I like this director, I want him to stay. She had just won an Oscar, so she had a little bit of pull in the industry. And also she was dating Quentin Tarantino at the time. So she said, Quentin, make Weinstein listen to me. And he did. And so that's why Del Toro did not get fired from this movie. But that's also why Final Cut was taken away from him. So Weinstein said, fine, I won't fire him, but I get to decide what the final cut of the movie looks like. And apparently they used a bunch of stuff from the B camera team, that a bunch of stuff that they shot, and Del Toro didn't like that stuff at all, which is why he wanted to make his big director's cut. Like, he didn't think they lit it the way he wanted to. He didn't think it felt like his movie, and he just didn't like it. And he had kind of sworn off the movie until he was given the opportunity to rebuild his own version. But I also think in the scripting of this movie, this is a really interesting thing. And I think it's important to talk about when talking about Del Toro, because his first movie was a independent film in Mexico that he wrote and directed, and I don't think he produced, but he worked closely with the producers. And so it was his movie, right? It was his vision. Like, if you're talking auteur theory, that was his movie. That movie was very successful. It was very popular. It got his name out there. And so Weinstein brought him to Hollywood and say, okay, we're going to give you some money and you get to make a Hollywood picture now. We got the short story. We want to adapt it. Do you want to write it? Cool. We'll put this other guy with you. You can write it together. Go. And immediately, Del Toro pushed up against a system that didn't want to give him a lot of leeway. Because if you read about what Del Toro wanted this movie to be, it sounds way fucking cooler than what it is. It's supposed to be super dark. Like, we talked about that God is angry theme. It's that, except made literal in the fact that the end of the movie is they lose. And the insects are out in the wild now, and it's only a matter of time before humanity will be wiped out. They took away the science part of it, and it was just not a quick evolution, but a slow process of evolution over time that eventually led to these creatures. It was just a very, very different movie, and I do think that shows in the film we saw. Like, that's what I mean by he's pushing up against things. He wanted to do something different with this movie, and he's trying to sprinkle in the parts that he wanted into a script that the studio is making him create.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you explained all of that, because now I don't really hold it against him so much. Like, it seems like he probably had some draft of the script that was something that felt more like a Del Toro movie, and then, they pushed it into the mold of a Hollywood film. I mean, honestly, you could do worse than saying, all right, shit, they're not going to let me actually make this sort of dark gothic morality tale that I want to do. All right, let's just take some plot points from really successful action movies with similar themes and see if we can make something work there. And because I mean, I think you pointed out that like the first, I want to say half of the movie is this more slow burn, dread, building dread, looming shapes in the darkness, looming figures trudging through the rain. Pretty creepy and scary, actually. You know, a lot of the horror is just like reaching your hand into a bag.
Yeah. And some crazy looking bug bites it. Yeah. I mean, he kills the kids. That's one thing that I couldn't believe, that like, you know, normally you see a couple of kids wandering through a subway and they're like going to see the monster. And there's even like, there's a dog being eaten. So you're like, okay, so the dog's going to die, but the kids are going to get away. And then Del Toro's like, nope, I'm killing the kids.
Yeah, I thought maybe they had survived and it was just going to, you know, cocoon them like in Aliens or whatever. But nope, you don't see the kids again. It's funny because it felt like a fake out, because when they find when there's the sewage treatment plant and they're like, oh my God, I think it's a kid that's clogging up the machine. And then it turns out that it's just a bug corpse.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, so the kids probably aren't dead. That was a fake out. But then it's like, no, the kids are actually dead. Oh, okay.
Fun fact, the guy in that sewer treatment plant, Norman Reedus, in his very first role.
Oh my
ever.
God. That's funny. But so like it feels like the first half of the movie is close to the film that he wanted to make, and then the second half is a paint by numbers Hollywood action horror movie that just is fine. It's fine.
That's the thing, is like, this movie isn't bad, right? I think I gave it like a solid 2.5 stars out of 5 or something. Like, it's just it's fine, and I do think all the parts that I truly love about it are the Del Toro touches. Like, I love the Judas Beetle design. I love the human face mask thing that's created. Some of my favorite parts of the movie are when she has the two Polaroids and she's folded one over and slowly puts the face together in the Polaroid for the first time. I think that's such a wonderful moment. And then as soon as she does that, the train makes noise and she looks up and the subway is just, the platform is just empty now, except for the looming shadow of Mr. Funny Shoes. It's just that's a really great Del Toro moment. And I love the feel of everything underground. It's dank, it's dark. I love the way he shoots it. There's so many wonderful different set pieces mixed in this place with these weird grates that like probably don't make any like geographical sense at all, but just add this feeling to it. I like all that stuff a lot, and that's Del Toro really stretching his legs there. And you can kind of see the ways in which he got away with as much as he could with what he could, but it was just hamstrung in some other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because the idea of the setting of like the multi levels of underground abandoned subway tunnels and attaching maintenance and drainage corridors and utilities and everything, and it's dark and all they have is the lights that they brought with them, and it's all decrepit and decaying and like that's actually great. Like, it's visually great. It's just a mess of a screenplay. I know I'm being negative. I know, like, I don't like it when I get this way. I don't like it when I get in a rut of like, this is annoying and I disliked it. It's definitely true though. Like, I don't recommend the movie. Like, it's not a good movie, but watching it is still enjoyable because exactly what you said. Like, the visual style throughout the whole thing is fantastically dialed in, and so that is very much like the sign of Del Toro. He's going to do a good job on the visuals, even if he's not going to get anything else that he wants.
And he's going to make them gross and excellent, and there's going to be bugs and crosses. Guillermo del Toro.
Weird looking bugs. Like that's, I think that's the thing I love the most about it, is that it's not just bugs, because like I personally don't really think like a cockroach is scary.
Mhm.
But like a weird bug where you're like, I don't know, like that's a weird thing. Like, is that a stinger? Is that a claw? What am I looking at exactly? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
actually tickles some little node of my brain that I haven't accessed in many, many years, where I'm like it actually creeps me out just to see the thing on the screen, or I think this is a principle of horror, actually. Like when it's showing, the full size bugs for the first time, but they look like human, or they look like a shambling figure. Basically, you're just like peering with your, with like the full intensity of the power of your vision to be like, what am I looking at? Like, it's
Yeah,
wearing a
yeah.
coat, but the coat is like stiff. Does it have wings wrapped around itself?
And it
Its
is.
neck is
It's its wings.
it's its wings, and that's awesome, right? But like this, especially the first time you see it, and that's not clear, and you're trying to see like what's up with its legs. Its legs don't look right. What is, and like there's something about stuff that just doesn't look quite right.
Mhm.
where it's just, I don't know, that got to me really, really powerfully.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a bummer because I know they had to do it eventually, but like the reveal of like the full scope of what the bug looks like away from its human disguise just kind of it hurt it for me a little bit.
I had wished that they looked more like more like people. I wish that the bugs looked more like mutated, creepy people in sort of a Cronenberg The Fly direction, rather than just kind of looking like a giant cockroach that happened to have a couple of extra face appendages.
Sure.
Because it basically stopped being scary to me the moment that it did its first like transformation into a giant cockroach.
Sure. Sure.
And maybe if you have a cockroach phobia, it would work better on you. But
maybe.
I did like the moment when he's doing the wiring, and then he turns and there's one of them like right there next to him. That still
very
got
good.
me.
Very good. Yeah. And then I wish it just kept the face and just like they looked at each other face to face and then it walked by. That would have been so cool.
I agree. Yeah.
But we have to talk about this man. We have to talk about this Peter man, this Dr. Peter man. This is Jeremy Northam, who I had nothing against going into this movie. Like, he's been in quite a few movies throughout his career. I think he's still working today, although not as much. But I think he was pretty big in the 90s. He was in a lot in the 90s. He's not good in this at all. And I, like, maybe it's not all his fault, but some of it definitely is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the interesting thing that they do with him is they make him such an asshole. Like, he's such a jerk. He's a jerk to his wife. He's a jerk to Leonard, the police officer, that gets sucked down there with him. He's just an asshole to everyone. And I don't like, it's interesting, like, to make the Aliens comparison, he's basically Gorman from Aliens, who is the asshole lieutenant that no one likes. And the thing about Gorman and Aliens is he redeems himself by sacrificing his life to kill the aliens. And so you're like, oh, Gorman, you were an asshole, but you did it. Thanks.
Yeah.
They do that in this movie, except he gets to live afterwards. And you're just like, oh, okay, well, cool, I guess. I don't like you.
No, he literally, he's going to do the Gorman thing.
Yeah.
I said to myself, I was keeping track of all of the things that it was ripping off, and so as he's trying to blow himself up, I was like, you always were an asshole, Gorman. But then then you see him jump in the water, and you're like, okay, he lives. Fuck
yeah.
He's gonna survive. And so just like you said, the movie tries to do a redemption thing for him, where it gives him that moment where he's like, all right, if any of us are gonna leave this train car, it's gonna be me and what's his face, because the rest of you are the ones that need to stay because you have a chance of actually solving this problem. So he's putting himself at risk.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be the moment where you like him, but it just falls dramatically flat for me. I don't know why exactly. I think it's just because he's been such an asshole, and it's not enough. It's too little too late. And then it, like, yeah, I don't, it is interesting to think about, like why does a redemption work here and not work elsewhere?
I think the problem is that his assholism is not founded in anything. The movie never creates a reason for why this guy is an asshole. Like Gorman, to call back to Aliens again, is an asshole because he's the stuck-up, know-it-all, fresh lieutenant, right? He's in over his head, and he's overcompensating to kind of earn the respect of these battle-hardened Marines. There is no reason for Peter Mann to be an asshole here. Like there's this weird thing that the movie tries to do. Like you can kind of tell it's trying to do these things where he has this really contentious relationship with the cop, with Leonard, where they're like bickering and arguing back and forth. And then there's a moment at the end of near the end of the movie where like they kind of bond a little bit. And then like Leonard basically sacrifices himself for Peter. And you could say, oh, look, they repaired their relationship, I guess. But there's no reason for the frustration there. I think like if I squint, you can kind of see that Peter has a very contentious relationship with police, because there's that moment earlier in the movie where he quarantines 2 of the police officers because they were around all the disease in the sweatshop. And like he's arguing on the phone with the police chief. And so you can kind of maybe say, okay, he just like has dealt with cops a lot and he just doesn't like cops. And therefore he's just going to be an asshole to every cop he sees. But like, I don't know. That's not enough to hang this relationship on. Like I would have loved if like something like, again, they tried to do it where Leonard squashes the bug, that like the whole reason they're down there is to collect one of the bugs. And then Leonard sees one and squashes it. But that's already after they've had their first big blow up like fight. Yeah. And so I would have loved to see like something in this relationship, some backstory here for why there was this big push and pull between them. And that maybe would have motivated the change of heart. And you could have actually dramatized that in a way that we buy into it. Yeah. Because, I mean, and the other problem is he's also just kind of a dick to Mira Sorvino too. And so we don't like their relationship, which is like supposed to be the romantic relationship that we hang all of our drama on.
I feel like they either didn't write or they cut out all the scenes where they make this character likable. Him and the cop, actually, they're both completely unlikable characters. Mm-hmm. Like Aliens is a great movie, so it's I think it's a fine thing to compare. But like Gorman, he is unlikable until he makes a terrible mistake. And then you can immediately tell from that point forward, he's basically like humbled. Yeah, he's like, this was my fault. I screwed up. He feels horrible about it. You can tell he does. And then he sacrifices himself because you know that he knows that this is almost necessary at this point to redeem himself from the mistake that he's made. And like you already liked him by that point, though. You don't just like him because he blows himself up. You already liked him by that point. And that's, every character has to have their humanizing moment where you don't have to like them in the sense of like, I want them to be my buddy, but you have to see enough of an echo of humanity in them to attach.
Sure.
And we never got that moment with either of them. They're just yelling at each other the whole time, and you're stressed out. You kind of want them to not. You kind of want to cut back to the other characters who you actually like.
I mean, and that's, I think, because the person who was carrying the guilt of the mistakes that they were made was Susan, mm-hmm. Mira Sorvino's character. So like they both together did this thing, and she's the one carrying the guilt of the thing. And it's interesting because the movie like creates this problem, which is all of our children are dying. Please genetically engineer some bugs to save children. And the movie wants us to like go into this being like, you shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of like, okay, but like at least in Jurassic Park, it was like, let's do a zoo. Like that's that's way different than all of our children are dying. We must do something to save them. So yeah, I mean, I think it's harder to hang on that particular, like there wasn't a hubris there. There was a desperation there.
Yeah.
But regardless, Peter has no, like the way they make Peter, like he is a member of the CDC. He's an agent of the CDC, and he is a person who is responsible for containing viruses and saving lives. He's a hero, but the way they characterize him, he hates his job. He seems miserable. Every time he's talking to Mira Sorvino, he's like, yeah, we got a tuberculosis outbreak all over the place. so much paperwork. He's just complaining about it all the time. And it makes, I mean, I understand like even heroic people will just get like fed up with the rote, like, tediousness of their job, regardless of whether that job is saving lives or doing something unimportant. I get that, but you got to give us the save the cat moment just a little bit with him. And
Exactly.
yeah, we never get that.
Yeah, no, I mean he should have died, honestly. Like
Mhm,
you weren't rooting for him at all.
Yeah.
It would have been much better if he had died sacrifice. And even then I still wouldn't have liked him. But like seeing him come out of the subway, I was just like, I feel nothing about this.
I wanted Josh Brolin to live and him to die. That would have been so much better. Josh Brolin's character is so much better.
Josh Brolin's character is way more likable.
Yeah.
That may just be because Josh Brolin is more likable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of a delightful, young, zany Josh Brolin performance, which is very much at odds with like every recent Josh Brolin movie that I've seen in my adult life, where he's always
this is 90s Josh Brolin, man.
Yeah, this is 90s. He's not growling or giant in purple. He's just it's just kind of a it's not, yeah, I don't know. I feel like his performance brings a lot to that character, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But he also gets to play, it's almost not fair to compare them because he gets to play a character that just has so much less heavy weight to lift. Like he's the Riggs of the relationship, right? Like Peter Mann has to play the Murtaugh and he gets to play the Riggs, where he's just like the casual, doesn't give a shit guy, and that works for him. And he's he dies in a very classic monster movie way, where he is supposed to go get help and gets lost on the way back and stumbles upon the fucking egg nest and then gets killed.
Yeah. The way he gets killed, I thought was pretty disturbing. Like, and yet again, I think it's using a trick of not showing, right? It shows, all it shows is the thing, gets him from behind. And then it just shows like his face as like blood begins to pour out of him, because he's clearly, and like, you don't know what's happened. You don't know what's happening to his body. You just know that it's horrifying because he begins to like bleed and make a horrible expression and then die. So it's stuff like that really works, and I think Del Toro knows how to use that tool.
Yeah, I do find it really interesting that this movie doesn't have the Queen in it. Like, I wonder if like that was a conscious choice, because they're like, if we put a Queen in this, everyone's going to be saying aliens, so we'll just do the King instead. And I do think like there's actually a moment early in this movie where, as you said, I think the first half is so much better, because there's a moment early in the movie where Mira Sorvino takes us on a tour of a termite mound and basically teaches us the rules of this world, like very subtly. She said, like, look, here's the pantry, so here's where they're gonna like store the food before they eat it, and later that's exactly where Mira Sorvino gets put. Then we learn about the male, the only one fertile male in an entire colony, which I don't know if that's true
pretty
or
sure
not.
it's not, but
that doesn't make a lot of like genetic sense, that like putting all your eggs in one insect wiener seems like a bad idea.
I read about this, and it's not true, although that is the kind of thing I would have been willing to just shrug off if everything else hadn't been wrong. But
yeah,
yes.
I mean, the thing is, I want to pick at it though, because I want to put these powerful themes of creation into this thing, right? And again, we talked about this movie a lot today because I think we were both frustrated and like trying to figure it out. But there's no Queen in this movie, because Mira Sorvino is kind of the Queen. She's the one that made them. So like, choosing to her final confrontation in the end is with the male species, I think is such a more interesting idea, but it doesn't go anywhere. Like, I just like, I really like this idea of like Mira Sorvino as the queen of the bugs, and here's the only fertile male chasing her down, while her infertile, let's say, husband is off doing whatever the fuck. And I think there's something really cool that could, and weird and Del Toro-y, that could have been done there. And I do wonder if a previous version of the script had, like, they captured her not because they were going to feed on her, but because they were returning their maker to the nest.
Right.
That would have
Yeah.
been something weird and interesting. And
Yeah. And like other weird things that I thought of while watching the movie was like, what if the male, because we know there's going to be the male, what if the male is like a human male?
Mhm.
Like, and use your imagination for where we go from there, but like it's going to be fucked up. And I thought we were going in that direction. Like I thought we were going kind of like a, Species. That movie came out at around this time too, right? Like let's get weird, folks. Let's make some weird psychosexual. I mean, we've referenced Alien a few times, but like the thing about Aliens is that it's way edgier in terms of being a psychosexual nightmare than
Sure.
this. Like this gets nowhere close to that. This is just like they're having fertility problems over here, and then over here on the other side, she created the species of bugs. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, I really wanted those two things to mix together in a fucked up way. That would have been great.
It's so unfair to compare this to Aliens, because Aliens is one of the greatest movies of all time. Like, I know that's going to be a comment we're going to get. Like, you compared it to one of the best screenplays ever. Yes. Totally. But the way Aliens does this is it makes the Ripley wanting to be a mother tie in with the Queen thing perfectly.
Right.
That ties in perfectly. It's mother versus mother. This never gets there. And you're right that the she's trying to get pregnant, and the way the aliens are somehow surviving and propagating things never come together. In fact, I swear to God, the end of this movie. So the very end of this movie is Chewie, who we haven't even talked about. God, we got to talk about Chewie, because that's not aged well. So Chewie is this little autistic boy that she saves from the bugs. And so her and Chewie are sitting there at the very end, and they've just been told that nobody down there survived, and they've just been told that her husband is definitely 100% dead, to immediately be told that that's not true, because he shows up and he hugs her and he says to her, "We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a baby." And that's the end of the movie. Except he says it and we're on her face and not his. So I'm like 99% convinced that was an 80-yard line, or maybe just a lot, like either 80-yard or just a recording from another scene that they put into this movie. Because like she doesn't react to the line at all. She just kind of has this look of content on her face. She's not surprised. She doesn't ask what he means by that.
Right.
She doesn't react. Like she doesn't react in the way someone would if you just said, "Oh, by the way, I found out you were pregnant and I waited until right now to tell you for some reason that doesn't make any sense." So it's like they got to the end of the movie and were like, "Oh fuck, we didn't wrap up the whole pregnancy part of the story. We just got it. Where can we put it?" And I said, "Well, there's a scene where we don't see his mouth, so we can put any dialogue there we want." And so they just shoved it there, and then credits.
I mean,
it's weird.
What's the dramatic purpose? I mean, I have an even less generous theory for all of that. Like, I feel like they shot that ending and were like, this doesn't land. We need to insert an earlier scene where she takes a pregnancy test and then he finds the result is positive. And then he tells her about the positive pregnancy test here at the end, so that something happens here, because you don't feel anything about them reuniting because you hate him and wished he was dead. So we need to somehow insert an uplift here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that, because I do believe that the pregnancy thing is such a through line throughout the movie that would be weird. But to give your point a little bit of ammo, it would make the existence of the character Chewie make more sense, because like the end of the movie, it's implied that she is going to adopt this kid.
Right.
That the kid's grandfather, Manny, is killed by the bugs, and she saves him. And so just like Ripley and Newt, she's kind of taken this kid under her wing. And so you could say that, okay, she can't create life herself, but she's now still gotten to become a mother by adopting this child.
I thought that's what we were doing. Yes, I agree completely.
But those two things kind of clash with each other, right? It's like, okay, so we have Chewie and I'm pregnant. Right.
Yeah, it makes you feel like it was tacked on, because it's dramatic. It's so dramatically inert. Like it's not sufficiently dramatized. Let me put it that way. You're not feeling like I'm really with this character and her fertility struggle, because that could be you could have a whole movie about a fertility struggle. It's a lot of people have a lot of trauma and struggle over this. It's a serious and very widespread issue, and the movie just throws it into the mix as like, okay, thematically fertility struggle makes sense here, and she's not happy about it, but we're never gonna have a scene where it's really conveyed to us, and then we end the movie with this note, and you're just like, I don't care.
I'm getting more on board with your theory, except here's what I think it is. I don't think they added the whole fertility struggle subplot. I think they just added the part where the test is positive.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, because everything works up until the point where Mira Sorvino leaves the room, and then it's almost as if like we got to pick up another shot, and we don't have Mira Sorvino, so let's just get Jeremy Northam in there to just pick up the test after she's already left, and he notices it, and then we can just work it in that way, and then he keeps it a secret from her. We'll shoot this really quick part where he's in the subway and telling her over the phone, but she can't hear it, and then we'll have him tell her at the very end of the movie, and it will not make any sense why he has not told her at any point during the course of the events of the movie at all.
Yeah, we can ADR anything we want over this phone call because they're not in the same room.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, because it's weird though, because like you could make an argument that the reason like he refuses to let her go out and do the stuff was because he knows she's pregnant. But that's thin. Like I don't know. I really like this idea that her actually the test being positive was a thing because they got to the end of the movie and they realized the ending wasn't landing enough and they just needed something else to spice it up. But it does kind of ruin the other stuff.
Yeah.
It ruins the impact of her, because like the weird part about her relationship with Chewie, and this is another weird part about this movie that I don't really understand, is she meets Chewie once in the subway and she's interested in him because he like mimics her feet, because he's this kid on the spectrum and he's like really good at like three things: knowing all shoes, making wire art, and using his spoons to mimic sounds. And that's like the one big thing I remembered about this movie was his spoons mimicking the very distinct sound that the creatures make, which I actually think is a really cool, wonderful Guillermo del Toro touch. I love it. It's very distinct, it's very creepy, and he drapes that sound over all parts of the movie. Even when there are no bugs in the room, he'll just have that like sting somewhere to just make you nervous, because you never know. Really good touches. But she meets him and she's interested in him, and then they just go away from each other. And then much later in the movie, Manny shows up again, and there's Manny, and so she gets a chance to bond with Manny. The four of them spend a lot of time together, and then it's like the very, very end of the movie, as almost like an afterthought, Manny dies and she saves Chewie, and suddenly she's like, oh my god, Chewie. I'm like, you remembered his name? Like I feel like there's scenes in this movie in which she learns more about Chewie, or Manny talks about Chewie more, and she really grows to like this kid or something, that really like Aliens again. We're gonna do this 7,000 times, but the movie is inviting it. Like half of Aliens is quiet scenes where Ripley bonds with Newt. Like that's like half the movie. It is just them hanging out together and them bonding and them growing to care about each other. And this movie wanted to do that with Susan and Chewie, but did not. There's scenes of that missing. Yes.
Sorry, I was just thinking about what a better movie Aliens was while you were talking. Yeah. No, I mean, it feels like draft 7 of a script that the person writing it has lost all faith in because of the pressures being put on them. And I think you're probably literally right that there were scenes where the idea was she's infertile or he's infertile. I mean, that would have been an interesting way to take it too.
Yeah.
But they've, she's managed to create life this other way, and then in the end she ends up adopting the boy, and that's her way of fulfilling that instinct. Like I think that, like it feels like that was at one point supposed to be the story. And then it feels like a lot of stuff was ripped out and some other stuff was jammed in. And because I don't know, because someone complained that the movie needed to be more. I think Weinstein's particular problem with the movie was like, this needs to be scarier.
Yeah, it needs to be more scary. I'm Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, yeah. And like that's the quiet scenes. You know, if you're an idiot and you think Aliens needs to be scarier, then you cut out the quiet scenes with Newt, right? Because they're boring, right?
Yes.
But I'm of course they're not actually, but that's what you say if you're dumb. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the moment I was talking about with the very end of the movie where I think a line was ADR there is not the only moment I felt that way either. There is a moment with her, with the final confrontation between her and the male, where she says the phrase, "It's the male," and that's like, it's weird because like we had been seeing that bug for like 10 minutes already. Like that one, like there's a scene earlier where Mira Sorvino says, we haven't even seen the male yet. You'll know it's the male because it doesn't have wings. And then the movie introduces this bug without wings. And then we're all like immediately like, okay, that's the dude. That's the dude bug. I got it. And it chases after her and she sees it and it climbs up the dumbwaiter and she kicks it down. And then it appears anyway at the end. And then she says that's the male. But that shot is with all we see is the back of her head. And that feels like such a stupid studio note to me. Like it just reeks of someone watching the movie was like, I don't get what's so important about this bug.
Yeah.
And Del Toro was like, well, that's the male.
Test audiences weren't noticing that it was the male.
Yeah, you're going to have her say that. And so they just ADR'd in because it doesn't make sense for her to say it there. Like she had seen it before that moment. We had seen it. Like it's just, it doesn't make sense at that point. It's just weird. It's just a weird thing. And this movie is like chock full of these weird things where I'm not like saying that this scene was, it's not like every time you can only see the back of someone's head when they say a line that it's ADR'd. It's not true, but it happens a lot in this movie. There's a lot of lines given by people whose mouths we are not seeing moving, and it just feels like a stitched together issue. And the interesting thing about that, though, is because we watched the director's cut, I wonder if the stitching together was done on the original cut or it was done after Del Toro took the movie and threw out all the aesthetic shots he hated that were in the original, and then in stitching it back together using the shots that he had that he liked, he felt the need to like close gaps. I don't know the answer to that question. I wish I could have watched both versions, but I don't like this movie enough to subject myself to that. But it is interesting because I don't know which is which.
Yeah. That's a fair question. Like in the course of making a director's cut, you may end up sort of breaking a few things in order to fix more things, right?
Yeah.
It's possible. And I think
you can't make the structure that much worse. So if he made the movie look prettier by breaking the structure a little more, fine with me. Absolutely fine with me.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that all of our complaints aren't things where it was like, oh, well, that actually worked fine in the original. It just looked like shit.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
This is the lowest rated Del Toro film of them all. Like we're here still at the beginning of this thing, and I think it's gonna all go uphill from here.
So one compliment though that I'll pay the movie is that it actually looks really good for 1997. Like the bugs.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty impressed that like all of the shots of the bugs really you're just like, wow, that's adequate. Like I'm like I feel like in around that time frame, anytime that you saw something that was full CGI, it didn't look like it was lit right. Like they hadn't figured out like bump mapping or something, and just nothing looked like the surfaces didn't reflect correctly. I think there's obviously there's a good mix of practical effects. Whenever the creatures are up close, it's usually a practical puppet, and those look really good. Like the way they move is adequately creepy, where you don't really think about the fact that you're looking at a puppet. And then when it's a further back shot, you don't see the seams. It's not like how we complained about in Alien 3, how there's this jarring, dramatic discontinuity between the alien costume and the CGI alien. It actually just flowed really well for me. So I thought all of that was handled really quite remarkably well for the time.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that's one thing that Del Toro really excels at is creature work, and we found out last week why that is because he was trained under one of the masters of the thing, and so yeah, he found a way to really blend the practical and the CGI in a way that works really well. I mean, you can like, if I wanted to be super critical, like it still looks like 1997 CGI. It blends better. You're absolutely right, but it's like it doesn't look like what this movie would look like today. But
Yeah.
if they made it today, they wouldn't use any of the practical effects, and that would suck. So
Yeah. I mean, another thing that came out in 97 was Starship Troopers. And you're just, you're constantly, I mean, that's a good movie too.
Yeah.
But you're constantly aware whenever you see the bugs in that movie, I mean, a perfect thing to compare it to, because it's literally like a giant bug. Like they don't look right. They don't move. Like I said, it has to do with the lighting and the way the surfaces scatter light. And it's just like, no, I know that I'm not looking at a real thing. And I think maybe Del Toro kind of used the fact that it's just very dark to his advantage.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So I thought it was fine.
Yeah. I really liked the music in this movie. I thought the soundtrack was super creepy and I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not like I'm not going to remember it, but I just remember like the intro credits. We talked about intro credits with Fincher a lot. The intro credits in this movie I thought were really good, and the song really worked for them. It's just kind of this cross cut between bugs like pinned on corkboards and stuff to pictures of children pinned on corkboards. I thought that was a really, really powerful effect, and I wish children were more of a important part of this movie. You you can kind of see the frame of a story that would have been like really, really interesting and really weird and different and new, but it just didn't get there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think Del Toro would agree with us on a lot of what we're saying here. He might push back a little on a little of our writing complaints, but I think he would agree with us because one of the big things that happens is after he finishes this movie, he says fuck the studio system for a while. The next movie he makes, the next Del Toro movie we're going to cover, is a movie called The Devil's Backbone, which is another movie. It's a small independent film it's in Spanish. It was made in Mexico, or I actually think it was made in Spain. Actually, it's a much smaller non-studio picture. So he kind of said "fuck you" and went off on his own. The interesting thing is that Del Toro's career is kind of this constant back and forth between, like, he makes his own independent picture and then he dabbles into the studio system, and then he says fuck this and then makes his own. That's kind of the back and forth of his career, and I think we're very fortunate that we get both sides of these things. I think, we had Kronos, which is a perfect entry level example of what his independent small drama films are going to look like, and then we had Mimic, which I think is a perfect entry level example of what his big Hollywood pictures are going to look like, and he will get better at both of these things as he goes. So it's a really cool like start of his career that we're going to see here.
Yeah, I think that's why he's a fun director to cover, because he has very ambitious visions of what he wants to do, and they're so ambitious that I think very often they do really require the kind of resources that you can only really get in the studio system. But then they're ambitious, but they're also highly creative and specific in a way where the studio system is going to balk at it. And so, as his career goes on and he actually gets to make the things that he wants to make, then you begin to kind of realize like, oh, this is a special singular mind.
Yeah. I mean, 2020 Del Toro would have the cachet to tell Harvey Weinstein to go fuck himself. And no, I'm not going to listen to you. I mean, I think anyone in 2020 is going to tell Harvey Weinstein to go fuck himself, but you know what I mean? Like this was his first big studio movie, and he just didn't have the ability to push back hard enough. And to his credit, he tried. He pushed back so much that they wanted to fire him. So like that shows a man who respects his craft. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I think there's a lot of good Del Toro things you can pick out of this movie, but I think it would be unfair to call this like a good movie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's as usual. I'm as we've talked about it I'm, my mind is fixating more on the stuff that I did like about it.
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, I think the biggest complaint is just like it just fell flat dramatically. Although it did, the dread worked for me. Like I
Yeah.
thought it was, a decent horror movie, I guess I could say.
I liked the cop character. I liked Leonard a lot.
Yeah.
He's playing a very well trod archetype of the no nonsense cop who's like sick of this shit. But it ends up being the one that sacrifices himself.
Well,
for everyone.
he also kind of becomes the coward. But then he chooses to be brave and sacrifice himself.
So like if you had to, like, for example, like the Hudson is what you're saying.
He's the Hudson. He is exactly the Hudson. Yes. and like we said earlier, and I think is in a joint effort, we identified that Josh Brolin is Frost, right? Or is it someone else? Yeah.
I mean, like he's one of the ones that died in the first foray, the first encounter with the aliens, where they lose half the squad.
Yeah.
He's either Frost or Wierzbowski or Apone or I don't remember what the one we actually. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
One more thing before we go. Okay, two more things. One thing is there's a shot very early in the movie where Mir Sorvino is releasing the Judas beetle into the wild, and Del Toro cuts to an insert shot of the beetle inside its little carrying case. And that reminded me so much of Kronos, right?
Totally. Yes.
That like just this desire to do this like this huge version of the beetle of it inside its carrying case. That was like, oh, they're just referencing your own movie there. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I agree. That jumped out to me. I wondered if we were going to get more of that. Like I was like, oh, is this going to be?
Yeah.
But no, it's just really that one shot. But I agree. That jumped out to me.
Yeah, and then I guess I wanted to talk about Chewie a little bit. Chewie and Manny. This relationship. We have to remember it was the 90s and things were different in the 90s, and so there's a lot of films that came out in the 90s, and there's a lot of things Stephen King did with mentally challenged characters like this, where he is obviously on the spectrum. I don't know what they would have called Chewie back in 1997, but it's very obvious that he's on the spectrum. Is there like a reason we did that though? I mean, besides the mimicking thing, it just seems weird to me. Like the choices made here, like, oh, he's gonna like be really good at memorizing shoes. I just like I don't get it.
Yes. Once again, feels like an element that may have made more sense in some prior version of the script, because I mean, okay, so I mean, I almost wonder if Manny and Chewie weren't much more central, because it reminds me of the relationship in Kronos, where it's a grandfather and granddaughter, and they're sort of a duo. Although interestingly, the granddaughter says like one word in the movie, which is an interesting parallel to the fact that this boy has communication issues as well. So there's another connection between them.
If you want even more, I mean, like Del Toro wanted Federico Lupi to play the Manny character in this movie, but his accent was just too thick. His English accent was the studio said no. So they got this other actor who is great. I liked Manny a lot. What is his name again? I'm blanking.
I don't know. He's in
Giancarlo Giannini. He's a very famous Italian actor.
Yeah. So I don't know why make that particular choice. But just it felt like the point of having the kid in the movie was to give her a kid to be the surrogate mother to, and then that stopped mattering in draft 37. And it's just a mess. So
I wonder, to get really disingenuous, because I don't know if this is true at all. I wonder if there was a version of what they were trying to say here is that like Chewie is an evolved form of humanity versus the evolved form of insect, you know.
Mm.
I don't know. I think but that seems like something in 1997 we do with autism, right? It was like, oh, this is the next evolution of humanity or something, you know.
Yeah,
Something
that
really
does feel like a very 90s thing to do. Yes.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, I guess I liked the idea of, like, pretty much from the moment where you kind of see that he can do the spoons thing. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
he's mimicking the mimics, and thus they're going to either accept him or this is going to allow him to survive at the very least.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been surprised. Like, speaking of weird stuff, like I was almost imagining some outcome where like we realize that he is like directing them, you know, and then it becomes maybe sinister or you know, or maybe the moment of salvation is like he rescues everyone by using his spoons. But none of that happened. None of the
Yeah.
interesting things I thought of while watching the movie happened.
That would have been really cool if he, like, yeah, I mean, it's why he survives down there, but it's not, yeah, it doesn't actually help save them in any way. And so he's a very passive character in the movie.
Right.
He doesn't really do anything. He's just there to be saved by one person or another, which is, yeah, it's pretty disappointing.
Yep.
But maybe even in 1997, someone looked at that and was like, "Ugh, you can't do that like the greatest form of human." Yeah, the 90s were a fucked up time, so yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not like, and just to be clear, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being autistic. I'm just saying that, like, I do see it like the insensitivity with which building a plot line around human evolution with it is something I could definitely see people doing 23 years ago.
Yeah. I don't know. See, like I said, I mean, now that you've told me that this screenplay / movie is sort of ironically the product of rapid evolution, due to a lot of pressures being put on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be less harsh on Del Toro specifically, but yeah, just, you know, this is why I don't recommend it. Is it just feels like a bunch of half-baked ideas.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting if we get to the end of this whole thing and we're like, oh yeah, he's a brilliant screenwriter, except for Mimic. We're like, oh yeah, well there we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
If there's anything we've learned in these past few years, it's that Harvey Weinstein sucks.
Yep. I'm glad we know that now. Imagine doing this episode without knowing that and just being like, it's just so strange and mysterious.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Why? Yeah. All right. I think that's it, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that is Mimic. It is available basically anywhere you can rent movies. Although I think we're both of the opinion that if you were going to skip any movie, if you're watching along with us at home and you were going to skip any movie because you got a busy week coming up, this is the one. This is the one to skip.
If you really love like bug related horror, then check it out. If not, give it a pass.
I do really like the meta analysis that you put in the notes here, that this is just intentionally mimicking better movies because it's called Mimic.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I didn't think that it was intentionally mimicking better movies, but it is mimicking better movies.
It's all part of the plan. Yeah. It's all part of the plan. Yeah. There's apparently 2 sequels to this movie, direct-to-video sequels, that I've never seen and never will. I like. This is what the film industry was in the late 90s, early 2000s. That like this movie couldn't have made that much money, and they still pumped out a couple sequels.
This movie didn't even make back its budget. So,
and yet 2 direct-to-video sequels. Sure, whatever.
Yeah, what a world. The 90s were. I pity people who didn't get to witness the height of human civilization, which was the 90s.
Oh my gosh. All right, so that is Mimic. As I said before, the next film we will be doing in the Del Toro series is oh crap, I just blanked on what it was called. Just as we were sitting here talking, I just blanked out. So now I am pulling it up. As it is called The Devil's Backbone, is the next Del Toro movie we are going to be doing. But we're not going to be doing that next week. We're going to take a little break and do a Patreon episode before we jump back to Del Toro. But we will be doing movie 3 in Deconstructing Del Toro very soon.
Yes.
But that is it for us this week. That's all we had. If you have any opinions on anything we're talking about today, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, or you can always find us on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia, and you have many different levels that you can donate at. Each one gives you some cool stuff, some bonus features. We got some bonus podcasts. And this weekend at the $5 level, our Doof Dancer level, is our monthly Doof and Chill session where all of the members of the Doof partnership kind of come together and do like a live stream fun thing. It's something new every month. And this month, this Saturday, Matt, are you excited? Are you excited, Matt?
Uh-huh.
We are going to be doing a live read of a spec script for the television show, The OC. If you're listening to this and you don't know, I do an OC rewatch podcast with my wife called What You Say. I've never watched the show before, but she's loved it. So she's kind of leading me through The OC. And it's a good time. We're having a good time, but we found this spec script that an author wrote, just a random script of a random episode that was never made into a TV show. And we're all going to do parts, and we're all going to do a table read of the script live on our stream this Saturday at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. And that's only for our Doof and Chill, or our Doof Dancer, our $5 donors and above. So if you want to check out that, it's going to be, I think I can promise, it's a very, very silly script, and it's going to be a very good time. So you can join us for that. I can't wait.
It sounds like a blast. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts, because every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks, we'll see you all here next week where we, as I said before, we take a quick break from Del Toro for another one of our patron-produced episodes. Next week, we'll be discussing 2 short stories. The first one is The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu, and then also Portraits of His Children by George R.R. Martin. These are 2 short stories, and so our episode will be talking. So read those, and then we'll see you next week. And hey, if you're an American, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Don't travel. Don't. Just stay at home. Don't go anywhere. Be safe. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.